welcome back to another video on my channel. My name is Trisha and today we are joined by Bowie, my Brazilian rainbow boa who is all over the place. And today we're going to talk about the pros and cons of Brazilian rainbow boas. No. So we're going to start off with a con today because it literally just happened. This is a con of Brazilian rainbow boas. When you take them out to handle them, they like to coil all over whatever is in sight. So I'm gonna have to wait a minute for Bowie to get off of my mister so I can continue the video. Alright, so I finally got her back. So we're gonna move on to the very first pro, which is normally what I start with, but that was like the most annoying way to start the video today. So the first pro is that Brazilian rainbow boas are absolutely stunning. So as you can see, they have a beautiful design of like these circles that go along their back. And then along their sides, they have these little like crescent moons, or some people think they look like owl eyes. And they're just amazing. And their number one thing that everyone just loves the most is their iridescence, which happens just with the way the sun hits them on their scales. And it reflects the most beautiful rainbows, and it really makes them stand out. It's just like the one thing that everyone is just obsessed with rainbow boas, and that's why they're called rainbow boas. So they are just amazingly stunning snakes. So that is a huge pro for Brazilian rainbow boas, and it's the main reason why most people want to have one. The second con for Brazilian rainbow boas is that the babies can be very nippy. So this is common with like most snakes in general, just because babies are defenseless, so they tend to be a little bit more nippy because they're trying to protect themselves. And it's the same thing with Brazilian rainbow boas, but like they're kind of on another level. Like the babies are just extra sassy and they bite like crazy. So that's something to be aware of, especially if you want to get one that's a baby and you're not about getting bitten and you're still kind of new to snakes, you're just not comfortable with that, then that's something to keep in mind, because not everyone wants to deal with a really snippy little snake. The next pro is that Brazilian rainbow boas tend to calm down quickly and tame quickly. So as I just mentioned, the babies can be quite snippy and feisty. However, with handling, they will calm down generally pretty quickly, and they do tame down pretty quick, although there always are going to be some just sassy Brazilian rainbow boas that just tend to never tame down, and that's just their personality, because every single snake is its own individual. So you do need to keep that in mind, because you may just end up with a sassy snake that doesn't really care how much you handle it and it's not going to tame down, but generally they do tend to tame down pretty quickly. I got lucky with Bowie because I got her when I was still uncomfortable with snakes, and she was so calm and she's never struck at me. She's just always a very gentle, docile snake, and that is why I mainly wanted her, aside from her being stunning. So I just got really lucky with her. I never had to deal with taming her down because she's just always been naturally great. The next con is pretty much the biggest when it comes to Brazilian rainbow boas that I tell people when they want to keep them, and that is that they have a very challenging humidity level requirement. So if you are looking to get a baby, which is most likely what people are going to be getting when they're starting off with one, the babies have the most challenging humidity requirement of 80 to 100%. And if you do not do this successfully, your snake will get very sick and will die. So it happens all of the time, and it's very unfortunate because it is such a high humidity requirement. There are ways to do it. You can do it successfully, but a lot of the times people just aren't really familiar with humidity requirements, and they just don't do a good job, and they're kind of newbies to the reptile hobby. Their husbandry just isn't on point. So it's something to definitely make sure that you understand before you get one of these guys, because you want to make sure that you're going to provide them a nice and healthy life and you aren't going to run into any issues with humidity. It does get a little easier when they're adults. When they're adults, the humidity can go down to 70%, which is still fairly high, but it's definitely easier than the 80 to 100% humidity. The next pro for Brazilian rainbow boas is that they are great eaters. So unless your snake is under a lot of stress, maybe it's in a new environment, or maybe your husbandry isn't on point, then the snake may not eat. But if you have everything on point, these guys are ravenous. Like, they are like a bottomless pit. Bowie wants to eat every single week She's now kind of food aggressive because she just always wants food. So they're amazing eaters. And honestly, I would prefer that to a snake that doesn't like eating or goes on feeding strikes because it's really stressful. The best thing is when your snake always eats well, and Brazilian rainbow boas are amazing eaters. Next con isn't really a con for me per se, but for some people it may be a con for them, so I thought I would mention it. And that is that they do get pretty big, so they do require a spacious enclosure. A minimum enclosure for these guys would be a 4x2 enclosure, which is what I have Bowie in. I may upgrade her in time. She does have a lot of space in her enclosure and she does utilize all of it. So just because of that, I would consider getting her a larger enclosure in time. But because of that, like, some people don't really want like a 4-foot by 2-foot enclosure in their house. It's just too much for them. So it is something to consider before getting one of these guys, because the babies are so tiny, but as adults, they're definitely going to get very large. I mean, that's also like a relative statement, because like I think that she's large because she is so heavy now and thick. But for some people, I mean, she's smaller than a boa constrictor. I mean, it really depends on you and what you think is large or small, but I think that they're a great size snake, but they still will require a lot of space just to make sure that they can move around and stretch and have proper enrichment. The next pro is that Brazilian rainbow boas are good with handling. So as long as you have one that's tame and will tolerate it well, then you aren't going to have any issues. What are you doing? You're a little weirdo. I don't know why snakes like going on your face. It's like, okay. But Bowie is pretty easy with handling, although now that she's gotten so large, like she'll wrap around my entire body and she'll reach behind me and like knock stuff over in my house because she just can extend so far. She's so strong. So, I mean, I feel like she's easy to handle because she's slow, and that's helpful. It's very relaxing to handle, but you definitely need 2 hands when they get bigger because they are kind of all over the place. Even though they're moving slowly, they're just very, very strong snakes. The next con is also, I don't really think it's a con, but it's something to be aware of, because if someone sees a tiny baby Brazilian rainbow boa, it is important to note that they are going to get much, much larger than that. It's crazy because the difference is just so big. Like, the babies are like tiny, tiny, tiny little worms. Like, it's so crazy looking at old baby pictures of Bowie, because that compared to now is just a significant difference. She's just so thick and girthy and strong and long now. She's a little beast, but it's amazing and I love her size, but that's a personal preference. But it's just something to be aware of because the difference is huge. And the next pro and the last pro for today's video is that they utilize enrichment and are very active at nighttime. So they are a nocturnal species. Sometimes you will see a rainbow boa out during the day. Sometimes they'll soak in the water like a little anaconda, but mainly they're just going to be active at nighttime. So it's really fun to go in and check on Bowie at nighttime because she's usually just all over the place, like exploring every inch of her enclosure. And I think that that's just so much fun to witness and watch your snake actually do things. So if you want a snake that will actually be doing things, a rainbow boa is a great snake to get, and especially if you want to watch them at nighttime. And the last con for Brazilian rainbow boas is that they can be kind of hard to find. So I always get asked where I got Bowie. I got her from a pet supplies. It was so random. There is a breeder for Brazilian rainbow boas in Chicago, but of course I don't know his name. And I know that there are a lot of breeders in California, but I never know any of them by name. I'm terrible with names. So if you guys know any good breeders for Brazilian rainbow boas, please go ahead and leave it in the comment to help out whoever is going to ask me, because I'm sure people are going to ask in today's video as well. So it is unfortunate because they are not that common, so you don't see them as often. So it can be kind of hard to get your hands on ones. So that is the last con for today's video. I hope that you guys enjoyed seeing Bowie today, and I hope that you guys have a great day. Thank you so much for being here and watching this video, and I will see you guys in the next one.